Welcome, everybody, to Oh Captain, My Captain. I'm your host, Joshua Hudson. With me, the captain himself, Austin Amandolia. This is our Thursday Showdown slate videos. We will be covering Thursday Night Football for this week, which is the New England Patriots against the New York Football Jets. Let's get into it. You know, Austin, every time I hear that music video, right before we get into this and we're talking about captains and ships and mutinies and all that kind of stuff, it really just feels like a mutiny is on the horizon after all of that. Does it not? Like, I'm not the only one that feels that way, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little bit ominous, but also brings the hype. So it's definitely got that vibe to it.
All right. Welcome to Oh Captain, My Captain, everybody. I am Joshua Hudson, your host for tonight. The captain himself, Austin Amandolia. He's our DFS expert here at Club Fantasy. And as mentioned in the intro, we will be covering the showdown slate on DraftKings, the New England Patriots against the New York Jets. And Austin, let's just get it out of the way really quick. Tell everybody how they can play these showdown slates against us here at Club Fantasy.
Yeah, so we run a weekly contest on our DraftKings league. It is the Thursday Night Mutiny because you get to take down the captain. I'll be playing in those contests. And you can find it on DraftKings. There's a link in the description of the show where you can join the league. We also have weekly contest for the main slate. It's a small tournament. It's 12 people. It's a $2 entry. So it's actually pretty easy, quote unquote, to win because you don't have to score 150 points to win the contest. You can get away with 100 points, maybe even 80 on a rough week, which this could be a rough week.
This game might just be that. This is one of the lowest over-unders on the slate, so that tells you that it's probably going to be one of the highest scoring games of the weekend of Week 3 in the NFL, because that's just how the NFL works. So friendly reminder to everybody, because Club Fantasy and our sister site, Women of Fantasy Football, have our partnership with Trophy Smack. You need yourself a championship ring or belt. You want to gloat over your league mates, maybe some wall smack or a trophy, just to kind of show off all the goods. Or, you know what, buy your commissioner a gift for being, tolerating you and a bunch of other idiots. Head over to trophysmack.com/WOFF. That's WOFF. Use our unique affiliate link and support all the good things that we're trying to do with Women of Fantasy Football. Once again, that is trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. And from now until September 24th, you have about 6 more days to use this code. If you buy a trophy or a belt, use promo code WOFF, WOFF, at checkout and get yourself a free championship ring with the purchase of a belt or trophy. So you get 2 for 1, baby. Let's go. trophysmack.com/WOFF, WOFF. All right. Now that we've paid some bills, let's talk about our segments here. And of course, the first, Captain Chalk. We have our chalky picks every single game. It's the ones that everybody wants to jump on board because they're the most obvious plays of the week. And Austin, you had a pretty decent game last week. Solid start to the season. Let's talk about Breece Hall, the New York Jets.
Yeah, Breece Hall, he's going to be the most rostered captain, most likely on the slate. Just looking at the roster percentages from last week, he was 52% rostered in cash lineups this week, which I'm taking that number from the $25 double up that is run on DraftKings. He was also about 10 to 15% rostered in tournaments, so that's pretty high for tournament contests. So I expect people to continue to do that this week. I will, especially because in this game, there's a dearth of talent, of high-end talent that people are excited about. So even though Breece Hall is the most expensive player on this slate, I will be surprised if he is underneath 20% rostered in the captain spot. I expect him to be 80 to 90% rostered overall, which I think is a good reason to play him. But I'm actually most likely going to avoid him in my captain spot in most cases, unless I'm in particularly small field tournaments, or if I were to enter a cash tournament or a cash lineup for the Thursday night slate, which I don't typically do. But I could see it in those circumstances. New England has allowed the 19th most points to running backs since week 16 of last season. That's not a super great matchup for Breece Hall. They've allowed the New England's allowed the 20th most this year, so it's not like they were really good at the end of last season, have been bad in the first 2 games this year. They've been pretty solid. So I'm probably avoiding him in my captain spot. It's captain slot, but he will be the most rostered captain.
Yeah, I think because he's one of, if not the most expensive player on this slate, I haven't double checked that, but maybe he fits better as a flex versus a captain just to get a little bit more unique with some of these tournaments. But the one thing I will say to your point about, points allowed to the running back position, Juwan Bentley for the Patriots done for the season. That's going to take a hit to their run defense. So that should open up some holes for Breece Hall. And the amount of usage that Braylon Allen got last week, I mean, he also was a top 6 running back in fantasy. Could take, a bit of production away from Breece Hall, but also make things a little easier for them as well. So it's kind of a hat in a hand kind of situation. So next topic here we have is the Mutineer. So these are the Contrarian Captain choices that offer a little bit of variety, some upside in some of these larger scale tournaments, the 20 max, the 100 max, 50 max, whatever it may be. Let's stay on the Jet side of things. And let's talk about the really only other good weapon that they have. And that would be Gumby himself, Mr. Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, so Garrett Wilson, he's if you put him in the captain spot, he's going to be $15,300, which is it's pretty expensive, but it's cheaper than Breece Hall, who's at 17.7K. This is actually my favorite captain pick for this matchup. New England got beat up in the secondary last week, which I think it's possible that happens again this week, that they focus on stopping the run game and forcing Aaron Rodgers to beat them through the air. And I think Garrett Wilson, he could get peppered with targets. So I'm hoping that kind of volume mentality that beat up against New England last week will continue. The Patriots have averaged 30 points per game allowed to wide receivers since week 16. That's kind of mid-tier for what we have seen across the league since week 16, but it is still a pretty decent amount. And the target share in this Jets offense, I think, is going to lean really heavily to Garrett Wilson. I'm not really buying into Allen Lazard or Mike Williams yet. They'll get a few targets here and there. They may be highly efficient, but I still think it's going to run through Garrett Wilson. The pass game will run through Garrett Wilson.
Yeah, and I know for a lot of people that will say, oh, well, so-and-so is going to be shadowing, blah, blah, blah. Christian Gonzalez, I think he has a bright future ahead. He's still essentially a rookie, having only played, I believe, 2 or 3 games in 2023. Currently, through 2 weeks, he is the 73rd ranked corner amongst PFF coverage grades. So while he's played, the stats are okay, he hasn't exactly played great. Considering how well Garrett Wilson has played, he's going to eat this week. And if you've listened to NPI, no pun intended, on Wednesday nights or here at Club Fantasy, Joe Zolo, our resident Patriots fan, he said that Garrett Wilson's going to go for 100 and a touchdown. That's literally his prediction for Thursday night. So take that for what you will. Next on this Mutineer list, the Contrarian Captain choices, let's go to the other side of the football and really the best offensive weapon that the Patriots have. Let's talk about the big boy, Rhamondre Stevenson.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, that's part of the rationale here is the best offensive weapon that the Patriots have. They are 6-point underdogs in this matchup. So I think people are going to lean more to having a Jet player in their captain spot, which will allow Rhamondre Stevenson to have a lower rostership percentages. He is 17.1K in the captain slot, so that is pretty expensive. But he's gotten 71% of the running back carries for New England this year. He's averaging 4 targets per game, and he has the highest odds of scoring a touchdown on the New England side per Underdog Sportsbook. So there's a lot to like about Rhamondre. Touchdown upside, volume, it's all there. And I think people are still probably betting on the Jets more than the Patriots at this time. So this is a nice way to kind of flip the script, say it's closer than that 6-point spread that we have from the sports books.
And I'll tell you, the thing working against Rhamondre right now 2 of their starting linemen, Verdarian Lowe, City Sao, I believe is how you pronounce it. Neither of them are going to play this week. So that's 2/5 of their starting offensive line. 2 others, David Andrews and Mike Nwenyu, are both questionable heading into this game. So he could have only one familiar face in front of him come game time. They're not playing at full strength right now. Luckily, Rhamondre is a big enough boy that he can shed some tackles, and I believe he's top 10 in the NFL right now in yards after contact among the running back position. So it may not matter at the end of the day, but it doesn't mean that it's going to get any easier for him. Let's just, call a spade on that one. All right, next segment here is the first mate, because every captain needs a reliable crew. These are going to be the standouts that help you fill out those flex spots and maximize the potential of your lineups. And Austin, let's go to that leading target earner on the Patriots. Let's talk about Hunter Henry.
Yeah, Hunter Henry, he's $7,800 in the flex spot. I was tempted to consider him as a contrarian captain, but it is very hard for tight ends to get there consistently. You need a Travis Kelce type, a Sam Laporta type, not this year, but last year, Sam Laporta. Most years. And I think because of the kind of the high variance nature of Hunter Henry, it kept me away from putting him in the captain spot. But he did lead the team in targets last week. He might be the number 1 pass catcher. I think there's a very good case there. I mean, Jalen Polk is probably going to be competing for that number 1 pass catcher spot, but Hunter Henry on any given week can get there. He has the 3rd best odds to score a touchdown per Underdog Sportsbook. So I do like the odds of him getting in the end zone. And that's kind of Hunter Henry's game typically. Like what we saw last week is not typically his game where he's catching 8 balls. It's typically more he catches 4 balls, but 2 of them are touchdowns. And so that's kind of what I'm betting on. I'm also kind of betting on a low scoring game. So if he just scores 1 touchdown and there's only 4 touchdowns scored combined between both teams in this game, that's going to be plenty for me to have an optimal lineup.
Yeah, the over-under on this game, according to ESPN Bet, is 38.5. So you're looking at basically 4 total touchdowns and 2 field goals, one way or the other. That's kind of what they're predicting here. So, which, you know what? Speaking of field goals, let's talk about Greg the Leg, who so far this season hasn't shown much of a leg.
Yeah, they have not been. He hasn't missed any. To be fair, it's just not been put in opportunities for field goals. So, like I just said, I'm not expecting a ton of touchdowns in this matchup with a 38.5 point over under. That gives the New York Jets about a 22 point implied total. It gives the Patriots, doing quick math, about a 16 point total implied total. So this game is predicted to be about a 21-17 matchup, right around that ballpark. So because of that, I'm going in on kickers. The key decision on this slate, I think, is going to be how you handle the kickers and the defenses. So there's a case to be made that you should play one of the defenses because of how good they are, the potential for turnovers, for touchdowns. The thing is, for a defense to be optimal, you need them to score a touchdown, essentially, because if both of these teams score 14 points, both defenses are scoring 1 point for the amount of points that they've allowed. They start with 10, but as soon as they've allowed 2 touchdowns worth of points, it's down to 1. And so at that point, you need them to score a touchdown or have multiple turnovers for them to be optimal. For me, I am betting on the kicker having 2 field goal attempts more than I'm betting on the defense having a touchdown. The odds of that seem much higher, so I'm leaning in on the kickers for this slate. There are going to be lineups where the defenses are in there, and I think that's a totally fine approach. But for me, I'm going in on the kickers.
I think that makes a ton of sense. And as you mentioned, with the defenses, turnovers play such a huge role in that. Rodgers has only 1 interception through 2 games. Jacoby Brissett, only 1 touchdown, but 0 interceptions. He's playing it safe. He's not making mistakes. The whole idea is they're going to run the football, play good defense, and, just take what the defense gives them. That's why Hunter Henry has been playing so well this year. So definitely could be a very busy game for kickers, which leads us right into our next segment here, which are the deck scrubbers. These are going to be the cheaper punt plays that can, help really sort of fill out the lineup based on 1 play limited opportunity. let's stay on the kicker bandwagon here, and let's talk about Joey Slye from the Patriots.
Yeah, so simple game theory move. I'm going with the kickers from both games in my lineup this week, and the one that I will put the most money in. I'm going to use both kickers because I'm gonna have players. I'm going to expect some touchdowns, but I'm betting on both kickers to have at least 2 field goals. And New England in particular, they're the type of team that stalls out a lot, and they will take the points. They're not going to go for it when they stall out too. They have had this mentality where it's like, oh, I don't care if it's 4th and 3. Let's get 3 points on the board. And so it's easy for me to see Joey Slye having 3 or 4 field goals and the Patriots scoring just 1 other touchdown. And they'll still be in it with that because of the way that the style of football they play. So it's really just, I'm leaning in on the kickers because I expect this to be a low scoring game.
Kind of wish the Eagles had done that on Monday night. Would have been nice. Might have actually won the game.
I wasn't going to rub it in, but my Falcons pulled it out for once.
Not talk about that. Anyway, let's stay on the Patriots side, and let's talk about the other running back, because I also find it very interesting that we have not talked about any of the Patriots wide receivers. But let's bring up Antonio Gibson, because he did look really good in limited time last week.
He did. He was highly efficient last week. And what I'll say is he's getting healthier, right? He's coming off of injury from last season. So he's been kind of ramping up. He had 11 carries last week, 1 catch. He almost had 100 yards, which would have been crucial for the DraftKings scoring, where you get the 3-point bonus for a 100-yard rushing game. I'm betting on a low-scoring game. So I'm all in on the running backs in this matchup. I'm throwing in Breece Hall, Rhamondre, and Antonio Gibson in a lineup, both kickers. And I'm going to have 1 pass catcher. It's going to be Hunter Henry. Because of that, I feel obligated to say, if you're playing multi-entry lineups, you should have 1 lineup imagining this game hits the over. Because a lot of people are going to look at this game and say, well, that's a sloppy Thursday night game, like me. And there are ways to get different with that. I still feel good about getting a unique lineup, betting on a game hitting the under. I do think it's going to be easier to get a unique lineup if you bet on this game hitting the over. It just has way lower odds in my mind of being an optimal lineup.
No, 100%. I agree with that. All right, before we get into the last section, Austin, remind everybody where they can play with us on the Thursday Night Mutiny.
Yeah, don't forget, you can play with us on DraftKings. You can take down the captain in the Thursday Night Mutiny. We have a contest that will run every week on Thursday nights for the Showdown slates. If we start filling them up, we'll add more contests. That's the way we are. We want to play with you. We want to give you a space where you can join these lineups, try some things out where you're not playing too many people. You're not, having to spend big bucks to get into the contest. We want to be able to do this together and just get to interact with you in many different ways.
100%. All right, my favorite segment, not because I like talking shit on players, but just because I like the name. It's the Kraken. These are the lineup traps that sink the ship. And we finally get to some pass catchers. What do you know? All right, let's stay on the Patriots side and let's talk a little bit about KJ Osborn.
Yeah, so this one was inspired by watching the waiver reports that I was getting in all of my leagues this week. I feel like KJ Osborn had more fab spent on him this week than I've seen in a hot second. I think there's going to be a different wide receiver too for this team every week outside of Jalen Polk. I don't know who it's going to be from week to week. So I'm not betting on them for this lineup, particularly not KJ Osborn. If I'm going to bet on someone, it's going to be like Demario Douglas. And that's it. That's just...
Demario Douglas has done literally nothing.
Exactly. Right. So for KJ Osborn, he's effectively the wide receiver 3 in this matchup because of Hunter Henry. And it's such a low volume game. It's going to be low scoring in my mind. And I think they're not going to be passing the ball a ton. There's not going to be enough volume to go around for KJ Osborn to get there. So I'm just avoiding it.
All right, let's talk about Mike Williams on the other side, because his snaps went exponentially up from weeks 1 to 2 coming off of the ACL injury from 2023. Not a big fan this week, huh? Don't think he's going to keep that trend going?
I could see him pacing similar snaps, and his snaps might go up, but I am curious about the fact that it's a Thursday night game. It's a short week for them. I could see them continuing to limit his snaps for another week, and then they're going to have a mini bye going into week 4. And that's where I think we start to see his snap share get back to what we will typically see throughout the season. Even with an increased snap share, he was on the field about 65% of the time last week. He only had one catch. And so you need more volume from that. Like just being on the field is not enough. If he's out there running decoy routes, we're not going to get points for that. So I'm not betting on it this week because of the short nature of the week. They may want to rest him and keep him healthy. So I think he's a trap. I'm a little bit nervous about him just because I don't see the upside right now.
He's also really expensive at 6,200.
Yeah, he's more expensive than Al Lazard.
To me, I think it's a different story if we're talking about 2,200, 1,200, something along those lines, because he has that capability of a one catch 40-yard touchdown, right? Yeah. That doesn't pay off as much at 6,200 versus the 1,200. So
exactly,
100% agree. All right, one more reminder. Help our friends and our family over at Women of Fantasy Football and their lovely partnership with Trophy Smack. Use their unique link, trophysmack.com/WAF. Get yourself some wall smack, championship gear, trophies, belts, rings, buy your commission or something. Or, you know what, get yourself not yourself, but maybe your league mate who, finished last in the league over the week, a nice little greeting card that says, I enjoy you in my league because you absolutely suck at this. It's a nice little treat, it helps yourself feel a little bit better and throw some shade at your league mates, trophysmack.com/WAF. Austin, great as always. Tune in Thursday night, Patriots versus the Jets. This has been Oh Captain, My Captain here on Club Fantasy. You can follow Austin on Instagram and the app formerly known as Twitter at Austin_FFL, myself at the One Hudsonian, and of course, everything we do at Club Fantasy FFL. The URL is clubfantasyffl.com. We will see everybody next week for another Thursday night showdown with Oh Captain, My Captain.